local cars, as I mentioned earlier on. So Nurov in a very precarious situation, but he often finds himself in these places. He doesn't qualify as well as he races.
Up front, they are getting with Lee Aberdeen and Luca Varani, not very far apart at all here. But I just want to see how Alistair Haig deals with Marcello Kessler coming around the old hairpin.
I would say it's not the best decision they've ever made, just not having done that under the safety car, really.
Yeah, they're taking their pit stop strategies from Ferrari lately or something. What's going on?
In turn one, just too much gas on them, too much feet on the round pedal, and unfortunately he's dropped him all the way down the order. But Philip Hammer is out in front by an 8.91 seconds. Dan Michael is a wall there, sir. And definitely doesn't want to be hitting that earlier on as well.
Difficult, the understeer is in the dirty air through that final corner because it's such a long corner and you get dragged off into the grass very easily. He'll have the slipstream down in towards the chicane. Peterson was briefly alongside, but that slipstream has saved him and kept him in third.
Yeah, Varani now lost a little bit of time to Aberdeen, about half a second. Peterson is Pike's pushed Morton forward up ahead. He's got out of line. It's now Pike going to have a go at Werrell. Don't push him off. He's in the championship fight. Jack Werrell chasing down Carl Jacklin. Further down, Rob Williams and Chris Barnes.
Sensational run outside line now though for the heavy braking zone. Around the outside goes the Audi R8.
Look how much Miller's caught back into play. Exactly. Miller's still such up. He's left on second and change. All of a sudden Miller's back in play.
To the back end of Phil Jocelyn. So there's been a lot of movers and shakers in this first 2 laps here for race.
Absolutely serious racing league. Everybody's allowed to have fun. Yeah, and it's all about the entertainment. So I hope everybody is enjoying themselves out there in the chat. We know that Ron is been enjoying himself watching. And Burger King machines off into the grass a little bit there as they're really bunching up now.
Good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome into iFormula Super Formula Lights, formerly the F3 series, but it's now Super Formula Lights. It is round 11 in Japan at Suzuka, a track that is known for fun, for action. It's known as a figure 8 track. Used to confuse me when I first started learning about Formula One and about the different tracks around the world because of the underneath part between the Degner curve and the hairpin spoon curve. it's a famous track. It's a fun track. Of course, my name is Bradley Dalton. This is not the voice of a Mr. James Parfitt, but Mr. James Parfitt is going to be here with me. He's going to be running the cameras. He's going to be doing everything behind the scenes, and you'll hear his voice here in just a minute. But while we are doing that, let's go ahead and take a look at the championship standings as they sit. We'll take a look. Let's start with the pros. And as it goes with the pros, it is Christian Glamseeder and No Limit Sim Racing at 266 points. Mackenzie Roon at 256 points. Mariam Barbarou sitting in at 246 points. Robert Ridgway sitting at 238. Adrian Colaseed at 219. Ian Lance at 187. Scott Barton going at 175. It is Alexander Rivera at 140. Timothy Nelson at 110. James Miller at 105. Victor Solano at 102. Mr. Iliano at 52. And Frederick Larson at 25 points. And then when you look at the AMs, we move on from there. It is Rachel Jimenez at 232 points representing Lumos eMotorsports. And then Alexander Shana representing Lumos eMotorsports at 189. We do think Rachel Jimenez can wrap up the championship this weekend. Me and James will talk about that in just a moment. Mateus Balcar at 187. Alec Hinchcliffe at 178. Anthony Serrano at 166. Jack Clark is at 149. Alexander Cinco at 127. Patrick Mitrovic at 114. Nicholas Marshall at 59. Hans Junker at 42. Eric Magnuson tied with Hans Junker at 42 there. Corey Buchanan at 37. Carlos Navarro at 23. John Jeremy at 21 and Jeremy Dome at 18 points as it sits in the AMs. Overall, at the teams, it is in 10 Get Good Sim Racing at 724 points over Lumos eMotorsports at 608. Noxie Motorsports at 483. Juncar Racing at 356. Intense Sim Racing at 295. Nelco eMotorsports at 276. No Limit Sim Racing at 266. Maxwell Racing Team at 178. Valve Esports 175. Octane Outlaws at 151. Wolfpack Racing at 59 points. And Intend Flat Out Sim Racing at 52. That brings us through. Qualifying has just ended here for our drivers. It is Mackenzie Roon that has taken the pole position there, and Christian Glamseeder in second place. But that's been enough of me talking through Mr. James Parfitt. Good afternoon, sir. Well, evening for you, I think, technically, but how are you doing?
I'm okay. It's only 5:30 in the afternoon. I'm very interesting to see how this one pans out, to be honest. We've got a bit of a light grid here, only 9 drivers. Normally happens towards the end of the season. Do believe Rachel Jimenez can wrap it up. If she wins the AMS today, that will be done. Alex Shana, I don't even think mathematically possible can get near her, even if she drops a full point score, to be honest. So, yeah, I think from Jimenez's point of view, it is kind of the championship done. It's just really keeping out of trouble, staying in front of Alex Hinchcliffe, staying in front of Nick Marshall and seeing how she can wrap this win up. Pros is a little bit more interesting with the likes of Mackenzie Roon and Christian Glamseeder only separated by 7 points. Mariam Barbarou, who's not here as either, so I think he's going to struggle to close that gap up. But there's a grid on your screen. Is it the grid?
Yeah, looking.
It's not, is it?
See it on my side, but it is not.
No, we've got a 5-minute warm-up.
Yeah, 5-minute warm-up, but the grid should be pretty well set. Should be. I think it'll be an interesting race. Everybody seems fairly even-ish on pace, so we'll see what sort of action gets produced for the run here. And of course, they have announced that they are doing a bit of a race on Friday where they are going to be running with Octane Outlaws, which is another sim racing organization. So they're going to be running through just to kind of help form a bond and a friendship, see if they can pull some more drivers over and do some different things here, just to help bolster the grid and see what happens. 9 drivers, as you said, James. It'll be an interesting race. Everybody's fairly evenly matched on pace, and you can see there on your screen the start-finish straight. You were looking at, the bridge, the over-under that, like I said, used to throw me off a lot because Suzuka's a track that, when you look at it on the track map on the top right, it's a little confusing if you don't know what you're looking at.
Yeah, it can do. You can almost look like you can turn left at some points. Obviously, we know you can't. You've got to go underneath and come back out on yourself. And I think that at the end of the day will always provide some action. And I think these guys are just going to have to be a little bit careful. Scott Parton, of course, going under the bridge. Now going around the other side, we will be going over the bridge after he goes around Spoon. But I think it's now just basically wrapping up the season, keeping it on track, seeing how you get on, and hopefully, survive the end of this race.
Yeah, it's a very easy chance for a large points haul for a lot of these drivers, with a little bit of a snap there from Scott Barton there on the run down. Yeah, this should be a point where, they can have a very simple, very fast points haul, make a lot of, cheap points, basically, for lack of a better phrase, where, several drivers haven't shown up, and jump your way up the standings very quickly. So, of course, to do that, you have to survive. So we'll see what happens for all of the drivers there around Suzuka as it goes. I have a feeling that all these drivers that I see should be fairly consistent, but then again, the warm-up, or the practice we watched before, we saw a lot of little off track, so I think a lot of drivers just taking the time to find the limits of the car there, James, see what they can get away with, and we'll see what happens from there.
Yeah, they've got to be careful not to push the limits too much, though, because obviously at the end of the day, it will lead you into trouble, right? And you've got a big hope of scoring some quite big points here, having few drivers on the racetrack, especially in the AMS. There's only 3 drivers from the AMS that are taking part here this evening, so you can obviously score some nice big points and get yourself moving up through the championship. As I say, for Rachel Jimenez, probably wrap it up. There's no Alex Shana, there's no Balcar, Mateus Balcar. Alex Hinchcliffe is here, of course. No Anthony Serrano, no Jack Clark, no Alexander Cinco, no Patrick Metrovic, no Marshall, no Junker, no Magnussen. So there's a long list of absent drivers, and I think for the guys that are taking part in this, there's some nice little points on the board. So let's see how they get on, let's see how they go, and we'll see whether or not they can obviously score them points by finishing the race.
Yeah, only about a minute left to go in warm-up here, and the whole idea of the warm-up is to just kind of give the drivers a chance to relax and roll through. Make sure you know where your pit box is, because of course these drivers do have to make one pit stop during the race, even though really they could make it on fuel, they could make it through, but they're going to pit in and take a quick splash of fuel and go through. That is a carryover of some of the rules from the F3 cars that we used to run before, and I do really like the Super Formula lights, the SFLs. I think they look and run a lot better than those F3 cars did, and it does make, I think, for closer, competitive, more fun racing here as we see Scott Barton into the pits here. You can see the backlight kind of blink up there, and we'll see Scott Barton will set it up, get ready to go, and just 20 seconds left to go in this warm-up, and then we get to run for some good action. I think it'll be a fun time.
Yeah, I think so too. I think at the end of the day, they've got to look and see what sort of racing they're going to have. Line up as you can, get as close as you can to the people in front. Make sure that you are on the money and on the ball, and that's what a lot of these people have got to do. As I say, for this young lady, for Rachel Jimenez, she's got to make sure she just finishes the race. I think generally if she just finishes the race, she will still score, even in third, 23 points, so she still will wrap up the championship. But here is the 9-car grid.
Yeah, 9 cars on our grid today, so a light grid, but plenty of good racing coming. Mackenzie Roon in the lead there with Intent Get Good Sim Race. You can see a 1:49.6 was your pole time. Christian Glamseeder in second, Scott Barton in third, Robert Ridgway with Ridgway Setups in fourth, Rachel Jimenez in fifth, Ian Lance in sixth, P7 Alex Hinchcliffe, Adrian Coliseid in eighth, and Nick Marshall in P9 here. So 9-car grid. I see one Aussie, I see one other person, and then a bunch of Americans. So we'll see how things go as we get 9 cars on the grid. I only see 5 at the moment, so still waiting on a few cars to set up on the grid here. They may just be stretching their fingers, getting comfortable, doing some nice quick little windmills in the arms, get things loosened up, get ready to go here for 27 laps of action around Suzuka. Gridding is done as it sits. You see the lights come up, and it is going to be 5 red lights, and we are going to be underway here for round 11, the penultimate round here. And as you see, Mackenzie Room gets away well. Christian Glamcedar is going to slot into second place, back third and fourth. Scott Barton and Robert Ridgway side by side there as we go into turn 1 here. First turn, as it is known, going through, but it does look like all of our drivers are going to make it through, kind of settle in single file. We'll see how this race runs. Through that, now we go through the fun little S-curves. This is the twisty bits, as I like to call it. This is where we've seen some great passes in Formula One from the likes of a Yuki Tsunoda, the hometown hero of Japan, going through. And we continue to watch through single file all the way around. And as they get out of the S-curves, heading towards the Dunlop curve and the Degner curve for the first time, it looks like 9 drivers away. No dramas, no crazy actions to happen.
Yeah, no, everybody got away cleanly, no real movements at all. Everybody's still in the same position they was when the lights dropped out. There was Scott Barton down in the second place. Got as you see Christian Glamcedar having an unfortunate incident there with Mackenzie Roon as they're going up into the hairpin. The left-hander hit. And these guys have, unfortunately, with Mackenzie Roon, spun it up in front of just missed Scott Barton. Mackenzie Roon went round, Rachel Jimenez into him there, unfortunately, and hopefully Rachel Jimenez did manage to carry on, but it's now Christian Glamcedar and Mackenzie Roon at the back end of the field. As I say that, Mackenzie Roon goes into the pits, and Rachel Jimenez's race could be, unfortunately, reserved until next week, unless she can keep it going.
Yeah, Rachel Jimenez, it looks like spinning up in the gravel there, getting back on the track. Rachel Jimenez is going to be very, very unhappy with that one. Christian Glamcedar caught up in that as well, and you can see Christian Glamcedar off the pace a bit. Scott Barton and Robert Ridgway now have a chance for some good action. You know, we said everybody was away, and well, look at that front right tire on Rachel Jimenez, pointing out at about 30 degrees to the right. So Rachel Jimenez just trying to, oh man, that is painful. Trying to nurse it around to the pits here, is coming through the Casio triangle, and needs to get it around. That is not fun. Nick Marshall has now had a crash as well, it appears. But man, how do you drive an open wheel Formula car with a 45-degree angle to the right? That's rough.
Yeah, you don't drive it very well, unfortunately, and that's the thing. So you don't drive, you can't drive it well, regardless of what you want to. On that one, we seem to be having some extra voice situations coming through. So bear with me on that one while I resolve this issue.
Oh. That's an interesting moment to have happen.
Yeah, I think it's coming off Scotty Barton's feed. Scott is giving me his feed for his camera, but I don't think he's muted the feed. And unfortunately, I think we were getting Scotty's voice coming through on the broadcast, but it's managed to be resolved now, as I've managed to mute it in OBS, so that should be fine now. And he's trying to get on to the back of Robert Ridgway here. Closest battle on the track at the moment is this one, as these guys continue to fight as they go through that 180 yard down into the Casio triangle.
Yeah, hopefully nothing too crazy got said there by Scott Barton. I can imagine a bit of a gasp and a yell coming out whenever Scott saw that spin there from Mackenzie Roon and Rachel Jimenez. Do we know what happened to Nick Marshall that caused Nick Marshall to crash? I see something for it, but I don't know what it may have been. Is this a turn 1 error?
This is going to go around. His back end's going to go around. Ended in too quick.
And goodbye.
Yeah. Unfortunately for Nick.
Thankfully didn't hit anyone, didn't take anyone out, but did go around there. Scott Barton in second place, 0.8 of a second back from Robert Ridgway. Of course, most everyone is probably running the Ridgway setup, and I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago, that I would like to imagine that Robert Ridgway doesn't give away all the secrets to the competitors, but just gives them enough to make it feel like they're doing something, because I know he posted a couple of different setups in the Discord earlier today. And James, if you're a competitor and you run a setup shop like that, are you sharing your setups with people? Are you sharing your best setups with people?
No, you're going to share your baseline. Right? You share your baseline. You're not going to share the tweaks that go with it. And that's the thing. I think you've got to look at the bigger picture, that no competitive race car driver will be giving their top secrets away. You know, you can't see Max running down to Lewis's garage and giving him all the information. I think that's the the thing. They might get some baseline, but they're not going to get all of it.
Yeah, and that becomes the question as a driver. The unfortunate thing with iRacing is that sometimes you've got to be as much of an engineer as you are a driver. You've got to be prepared to dial in a setup, and you've got to be prepared to know what you need to change on the car. Even if you're given, kind of the baseline from someone, you've got to know that their baseline is for them. You are you. That doesn't mean the setups are going to click together and compute. So you've got to be prepared to make those small tweaks that you need to make things work. Sometimes that means a little bit of a camber adjustment. Sometimes that means an air pressure adjustment. Sometimes it's a downforce thing. It really just depends on what you're comfortable with. But you can see actually fastest lap right now, Scott Barton. So our gentleman with the extra audio might be having a good run there on Mr. Robert Ridgway. We might see this battle heat up. Even though the gap's opening up a bit, I think we're going to see this get a bit competitive there. And Hinchcliffe is on the back of Christian Glamseeder as well, but that is opening up a little bit as it goes. Mackenzie Roon is out of this race.
Yeah, big blow. Big blow before we even got anywhere. We lost Mackenzie Roon, obviously one of the leading drivers in the series. Sitting second in the championship. Going to take a loss here, I think. And that's the problem, isn't it, for taking it this early, because you've got five cars in front of you, so technically still would have scored 26 points, but depending if he's got a drop week, he may not have scored any.
Yeah, and really, I think for Mackenzie Roon, unfortunately, I think that's a little bit of frustration seeped in and then left the server before really thinking about it. And sometimes that happens as a driver. You just get frustrated and you say, forget it. I'll just figure it out next week. But sometimes you just got to persevere. Even if you are a couple laps down, you just got to keep running. It is also, smaller grid, plenty of points you could all in. But, you got to respect the decision. Started with 9, now we're at 8. And Scott Barton is currently trying to go. And Ian Lance has now went straight to the pits. So we might be down to 7 here. I don't know what happened with Ian Lance, but Ian Lance was running up like P3 and now is all the way back. And
he's in the pits. Bro, his car is done. I'll be surprised.
And I think something has just happened to Christian Glamseeder as well. Oh, don't tell me.
It's coming into Casio. Over the curb, round it goes. He manages to hold it, but yeah, Christian Glamseeder is still up and running. Scott Barton still chasing down Robert Ridgway.
Yeah, Barton and Ridgway continuing to battle here, and this battle I think is going to go on for a while as we're lap 5 of 27 into this race. And the big story right now is these two continuing to run. Christian Glamseeder continuing to just not have a fun day that I can see, and dropping down now into P6 as it goes, but the field is spread out quite a bit, and that's the danger of a smaller field, is sometimes you just have hot laps going. And yeah, Glamseeder spinning again. That's a weird place to spin. Too much curb, yes.
Unfortunately for Christian, not going too well there as these guys continue to fight, as we've got 22 laps to go here at Suzuka, and at the moment we've got no Ian Lance, no Mackenzie Roon. We've got 7 drivers running around, and Scotty Barton's one of them.
Yeah, Scotty Barton here trying to chase down Robert Ridgway and chase down the infamous Ridgway Racing Setups driver, the namesake that is trying to look for what I believe would be a second win this season, if I'm remembering correctly. We'll see how that folds through. Scott Barton there, not too bad off though, is just kind of holding consistent in the background, not doing anything, anything drastic, anything dramatic, is just staying nice and relaxed and comfortable there. 9/10 of a second back, now a second back. You can see that Robert Ridgway has opened up the pace a little bit, but really Scott Barton just, I think, trying to stay consistent, maybe play a little bit of conservation through, and it's just trying to stay right in the mix. Is doing really well through the S's. The twisty bits, as I will forever and always call them anytime a track has some nice S curves. It's twisty bits, James, and the reason for that is because, well, it twists back and forth. I don't think I need to explain it, do I? Coliseed is now out. What has happened to Adrian Coliseed to jump to the pits. The same thing that happened to Christian Glamseeder.
Can he get that moving
Too
again?
much curve.
That's going to be the good. Nope, straight back to the pits.
And now Adrian Colaseed will have to just sit in the pits for a minute and wait for the car to be towed, and then we'll drop back quite a ways down into P7. We'll see how much further Adrian Colaseed falls off the pace there as this goes. Christian Glamseeder has started to catch up to Nick Marshall here, and I think that will be a pass that will be done and dusted pretty quick. If I had to guess, just knowing the pace of Christian Glamseeder, the No Limits driver, looks like very, very fast off the exit there and comes around. Is going to try to go around the outside here and make a pass happen. Does that work? Yes, it does, because Christian Glamseeder has the pace, and now we'll just slot back in as they go down here into Spoon Curve, and they are set up, they are comfortable, and that is done and dusted. Christian Glamseeder now up into 4th place, and we'll see if Christian Glamseeder has the pace to make up 8.5 seconds to Mr. Alec Hinchcliffe before the end of this race. 20 laps to go in 8.5 seconds. That's doable, I think, for Christian Glamseeder.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we know he's fast, and at the end of the day, he's not going to be slowing down in any shape or form, is he? And, you know, I think he'll probably try and make up as much time as he possibly can, to be fair. But, yeah, the car's getting a little bit more spread out now, and unfortunately, Scott Barton's losing time as well.
Yeah, Scott Barton losing a little bit of time here. Lap 7 to 27. I think at this point, this is just Scott Barton settling in. The gap's going to ebb and flow a little bit because there are sections of the track where it seems like Scott Barton is more comfortable. It seems like Robert Ridgway may be running a slightly lower downforce setup on that car to try to carry a little bit more straight line speed, but Scott Barton is doing very well to catch him, you know, in sections such as the S curves, the Spoon Curve, 130R. Is just doing well to stay there in the mix, but I think that straight line speed is eventually going to be what does Scott Barton out of the way, and, you know, may give Robert Ridgway a bit of a run to go through, unless Ridgway has a moment. Now, granted, we've seen some drivers have some moments here. We've seen Ian Lance and Mackenzie Roon and Adrian Colaseed all have moments on the exits of corners, so, you know, if it can happen to those three, it can really happen to anyone, and cause things to, you know, get a little spicy. We had a bit of spice on lap 1, and who's to say we don't get a little bit of spice again. 20 laps to go here, and we'll see what Mr. Robert Ridgway here can do riding on board as we watch this battle continue. Lap 8 of 27. 157.17 for Ridgway, a 151.6 for Scott Barton. Scott Barton losing significant time there and dropping out. Adrian Colaseed is now out of the pits and is over a minute back off of Rachel Jimenez. Pretty significant little gap there that Adrian Colaseed's going to have to overcome. And with a 7-car field size, over a lap down, I don't think that was going to happen.
No, definitely not, bro. I think everybody could possibly be where they are. The main person that might see movements from would be Christian Glamseeder, who has got 5.6 seconds up the road to Alex Hinchcliffe. So he's liable to get, I would have thought, catch him and get through. Nick Marshall is into the pits, and this is why Nick has gone into the pits. He's gone in and done that, reverse the car around, so he has gone in for his pit stop on that one. But the drivers are very spread out at the moment. It's very, very interesting to see just what happens here as we get on to now Brad lap 8 of 27.
James, the drivers are in the pits because it's raining. We have rain just to make this more complicated for us. So Rachel Jimenez is in, Nick Marshall is in. Yeah, so that's going to just go ahead and mix things up. I'm kind of looking at the weather radar here for this race and for this track, and we're probably going to have rain the rest of this race. So as if things weren't already complicated enough with a small grid and a spread out grid, we're going to just go ahead and sprinkle some rain in and make things a bit more challenging here. So Yeah, plenty of action left to go. Don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen, because it will keep things very, very interesting and keep things moving. Let's say lap 9 of 27. So we're a third of the way through the race, but you can see that pit lane is about to get very busy. Well, relatively busy for 7 cars. And
thinking what was going to be the best way to approach this. I think rain at Suzuka, you could probably say, was almost a definitive answer. You can see it's just slightly coming down at the moment. Whether or not Christian Glabsy, it feels like he needs to go in for wet tyres. However, he cleared Alex Hinchcliffe and has just literally pulled out nearly a second before they get through the first part of the Snake S's section. So we're going to have to try and keep an eye and see how badly the rain materialises and whether or not it's going to be a continuation and whether or not we're going to see some fall off from that. It looks like we may have already seen some fallout from Rachel Jimenez. The back end goes round, and then unfortunately it looks like she made another mistake not long. I think this is actually just a continuation of the one that she's had. She's been on track, and then it's going to spin around, then she goes off track, back on track, do some lovely little pirouettes, unfortunately, for Rachel there, and then settles back on and hopefully gets us back up and running here again. So, you know, we're going to get rain in the mix, and it's, yeah, it could be an interesting one.
Yeah, and, you know, iRacing has done a very good job of modeling that rain transition as well. Other sims, it would be like the rain is here and all of a sudden it's very wet. But iRacing has done a very good job of kind of modeling that dry line, transitioning to wet to the different sections of the track. So we'll see how that kind of affects it, because the thing is, typically if you had more cars here, that dry line would stay for longer. But the issue is, you know, 7 cars running around, the track's going to get very wet very quick depending on how significant this rain becomes. And looking at the weather radar in Sim, I am thinking that it's going to, you know, pretty well stay here for the remainder of this race. It's 100% precipitation for the next few minutes at least, and the radar looking ugly, I'm not going to lie. So I think this is going to just keep going through. We'll see what sort of action it can mix up, what can happen. Drivers, of course, need to keep together. I see Nick Marshall has been off track a couple of times, so everybody is just trying to keep things moving. Robert Ridgway has opened up a 1.1 second gap.
Here is Nick Marshall.
Let's see.
He just runs wide at Spoon, I think. Yeah, he just runs wide at Spoon for him. Yeah, cars fairly spread out at the moment. 1.1 up the front, and then after that we got 26 seconds, and we got 10 seconds, a minute 25 for Jimenez, 19 seconds behind that, and 22.8 seconds behind that one. So lots going on here at the moment, and yeah, should be an interesting one.
Yeah, I'm pretty well, you know, just kind of. They're just kind of running through. Ridgway's there. Barton's in second place. Glamsitter there in third. And Barton really right now is the big challenge, but he's not got the pace to go through. 151.2, 151.3. I mean, just trying to run and, you know, stay comfortable and consistent. I think he is, but ultimately I think that is going to cost him. And you can see kind of how the rain on iRacing ebbs and flows. Like, you didn't see rain there. Now we see rain. Rachel Jimenez is now crashed. So I think Rachel Jimenez is probably going to be very much not in a good spot, because Rachel Jimenez has had another around off-track moment somewhere. We'll see where that was momentarily, I'm sure, as we continue with Scott Barton here, who is closing the gap, I will say, with the little bit of rain. Again, iRacing has done a good job. There's rain only on certain sections of the track. They've done well of kind of modeling how that rain would flow in. If you think about it like Monaco in Formula One, and going through, because Monaco, you know, the rain moved on, and, you know, there was sections around Casino that it was just pouring the rain, and then you go through the tunnel and it was bone dry for a few laps, and it created a weird strategy situation. I feel like we're kind of finding ourselves at that same point, because it's not raining all over the track. It's just raining on, you know, basically the northern side of the track right now. Just a few corners that I see getting a little damp, and that is what's causing that. James, I don't really know if the rain's going to affect things like I thought it was for a moment. I saw rain, and my inner Formula One said, ooh, rain, everything's going to get crazy, and then really nothing's happened.
Yeah, no. Unfortunately, it's a tough one at the moment because, as I say, the cars are fairly spread out. Rachel Jimenez just unfortunately looked like she's had another moment. Last thing she needs to do is obviously damage that car anymore, because I'm probably guessing that the fast repair might be done after that lap 1 incident. So for Rachel's just got to keep it on track really, and yeah, see how they get on. I think it's now just a battle of who can complete what.
Yeah, we're lap 12 of 27 at this point. You know, for the drivers, it's just a case of, you know, who can keep the car on track all the way through, you know, the remainder of these laps. It's, you know, this is the point where you're kind of just time trialing with yourself. And no, Scott Barton, as I open my mouth, goes around and catches it, actually. Thankfully didn't hit anything, but that was a big slide there for a moment.
Yeah, it was. He was lucky coming out of Degner there for Scotty, because I can guarantee at that moment in time he probably needed some nice new pairs of underpants for him as he's come through Degner 1, and then it's just got unsettled on Degner 1, spins the car around and manages to hold it on track. So great job from him. Rachel Jimenez again off the side of the circuit. For Rachel is coming down into Degner 1, not being able to get it stopped there, unfortunately for Rachel. Tough for some of these people.
Well, and you can see at certain spots of the track, there is a little bit of spray starting to come up now. So the track's starting to get damp at points, and Degner being one of them that you can see, you know, for Scott Barton and for Rachel Jimenez there. You could see the spray coming off the tires, you know, after they spun and got back on track. So, but then you have sections like here that are just completely bone dry going through the Casio Triangle. And as I say that, a little bit of spray starting to come up again.
Yeah, it's starting to kick up a little bit. But that's spread the field out now further. And these 7 guys really just need to get to the end of this race. I think that would probably be the best bit for them. No spray coming through turn 1. A little bit on the exit. Still kicking up a little bit more. So we'll just have to see how this is going to happen and see how this works out. I think, yeah, 14 laps remaining.
Yeah, 14 laps remaining, spray going through the S's here. So, and these cars are on a slick tire, so it's interesting to me to see that they're still kind of holding on. There's enough heat in those tires that I think it's kind of counteracting, and, you know, they're able to fight through the spray at some of these points and some of the parts where action isn't happening. But Robert Ridgway, I don't know what Robert Ridgway's done, but look at that, 10.5 seconds now the gap between Ridgway and Barton. So Robert Ridgway, as he is running down into the wonderful corners of Spoon Curve, I mean, it's just absolutely gone, as we've had a Christian Glamseeder who was running P3 and was running, I mean, like 8 seconds a lap faster, has had an off, and it looks like that is through Degner. So I'm going to go ahead and guess that that is a wet track starting to kick in as we're lap 13 to 27 here. And again, we are coming out of Spoon Curve here with Scott Barton, who's trying to keep things going and just trying to, you know, keep it nice and comfortable and consistent. But again, you're seeing that rain slowly transition onto the track here as Scott Barton comes out through the Casio Triangle. You can see no spray, it's dry, so we haven't fully transitioned to a fully wet circuit yet. I gotta say, I'm amazed at how iRacing has done this rain transition. I've said it a couple times already, but you know, as you watch, it is very, very impressive to see just how well they have moved it, where the rain will slowly come in, the track will slowly get saturated, and you know, you slowly have those moments like right there. You can see this, you can see the point where through first turn it's gone from the track being dry to the track starting to spray. So that is really, really cool to see for me, because I can't think of another sim that does that. I can't think of another sim that does that moment at all that well. I said, of course, the competition maybe does well with that, but even then, I don't think so. Yeah, so that's one of those, I don't really know. And, Christian Glamseer had an off track a minute ago. Like I said, that was probably through Degner and with the rain, because we're starting to get to the point where there's always spray. Let's see this replay of Christian Glamseer, James.
Yeah, Degner won. Unfortunately, into the gravel he's gone. And around he has gone. Adrian Cullerseed closing up on Rachel Jimenez as they're on the run down into Degner 1. Who's going to be able to hold it? They should realise by now they've got to stay off the curbs due to the rain, which makes paint slippery, and they're going to be very slippery. And for Rachel Jimenez, it wouldn't be a bad idea letting Adrian Cullerseed through, because at the end of the day, that's not her fight. And Adrian Cullerseed is basically got about 17 seconds up the road. Well, actually, he's got a long way to go up the road, actually, because I've got him at 1:42 to try and catch Alex Hinchcliffe. Robert Ridgway's into the pits here. This would be the mandatory stop, and then Scotty Barton is behind as he's on his run down the start-finish lines. So, yeah, Christian Glamseer still sitting in third at the moment, Alex Hinchcliffe in fourth, and then you've got Adrian Cullerseed, who, as I say, listed at 1:41 behind here. So Robert Ridgway coming out of the pits. Is he going to come out in front of Christian Glamseed? Pretty much, but I think Ridgway's going to get there, and that's a whole straight away, Brad, that Christian Glamseed has got to make up over Robert Ridgway.
Yeah, and remember that all the drivers do have one mandatory pit stop. So for Christian Glamseed, Alec Hinchcliffe, and Scott Barton, they still have to pit. Everybody else has been in the pits at least once. And it looks like in the case of Rachel Jimenez, has been to the pits twice. So we'll see what happens there and how that mixes things up. But Robert Ridgway, at the moment as it stands, is your leader with a 30-second pit lane time. So if you do the math on that, we'll come out with at least a 15-second lead on Scott Barton when Scott Barton finally decides to go in and out of the pits here, and even more than that on Christian Glamseed. Christian Glamseed, 11 seconds back, is gaining. You can see the car doesn't look as compliant as Christian Glamseed probably wants it to be. A little bit of a wiggle through braking zones, but I do just think that's because of the wet track. And tire lock up there on the front.
Yeah, I don't think if they, they're gonna have. It's now really into this mid phase and trying just to make sure that they're all going to be surviving. As you can see, the only one on wets is Rachel Jimenez. Everybody else is on dry tyres. So Rachel Jimenez is the only one on the wets at the moment, and everybody else still on the dries. So let's see how Jimenez gets on and whether or not the wets was the right way to go.
Well, just looking at lap times, I'm going to tell you that Rachel Jimenez is the odd one out all the way around. Rachel Jimenez running a 159.4 last lap versus our leaders that are still running 151s, 152s. So kind of I can see the justification. You do have a little bit of spray, but for Rachel Jimenez, the odd one out, which is not a great decision. Now, granted, if it does suddenly come, a downpour as if, we're going to float the arc off, then you might catch Rachel Jimenez being at a good point and being able to make some significant time. And, the one thing with these wet tires on these super formulas, they're not truly wet tires. They're more of like a, semi-slick road tire with some grooves cut in them, but they still have a little bit of slick properties. They can't handle torrential downpours, but they can handle, this sort of rain a little bit more significant than this. But lap times are still, 4 to 5 seconds off the pace compared to the cars around. So the wet tires are going to provide some comfort and some stability for Rachel Jimenez, but still, you're losing out significant pace. It is very much a gamble. I don't think we're near the transition point yet for being on those wet tires.
No, probably not. But I think for Rachel Jimenez, as you say, it's more of a very much a comfort thing, isn't it, really, to obviously feel comfortable on there. You never know, in Japan it could all of a sudden just open it up and you've got monsoon weather going on. So I think, you know, for her perspective, if it does come bucketing down, then she's in a good spot. If it doesn't, unfortunately it doesn't look like it will be, because there's still shadows on the car, as you can see underneath the front there. Every time there you can see the shadows just coming out of the right wheel. And so it's still got some sun in there beforehand, so Rachel Jimenez could need to go in and put on some dries for the last 10 laps.
Yeah, the big issue too with Rachel Jimenez is being on that wet tire on a drier or drying track is that you're gonna have to hunt the grip. You've got to hunt for some water on the track to cool those tires down, because if the tires overheat, it's game over. And you have no grip, you have nothing that you can do. The car is going to just slide everywhere, and it's honestly worse than being on slicks on a dry track. So for Rachel Jimenez, still staying out on the wet tires, because at this point you're pretty well committed. I don't think there's a lot of an option for Rachel Jimenez to go in and, you know, do anything. Looking back up at the front of the field, Scott Barton, Christian Glamseeder, Alec Hinchcliffe, they all still need to pit, but Robert Ridgway is effectively your race leader by a significant margin there. We're just waiting to see when the other three pit, but Scott Barton is trying to open up a bit of a gap and maybe try to find a way to make the undercut work. 17.8 seconds is the gap, and if he can get that to around 30, he would be in a good position, Scott Barton, to try to have a run at the race win at the end. With 10 laps to go here, James, anything's possible, really.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. Anything, as you say, is possible, but just wondering, obviously for Scotty Barton, is it really more fighting out that second place with Christian, who seems rapid as always? So we'll have to keep an eye on the gap between Christian and Scotty Barton in general. It's about 30 seconds at the moment. He probably just would have enough to come in, get the tyres changed, you know, and then go back out. But I think for him at the moment is really trying to open up that gap. But the more chances he takes, the more chance he's got of causing himself some problems, of course.
Yeah, that is true. It's very much a give and take. You know, I think also Scott Barton's got to be looking at where Christian Glamseeder is at as well, because I think that's really going to be your big issue, is where is Christian Glamseeder in the mix. Rachel Jimenez getting another off track, I see, and Christian Glamseeder now in the pit lane. So this is going to be, I think, what tells Scott Barton truly how much of a gap he has, what he can do, and, you know, where he can land himself to be in a possible P2. Rachel Jimenez here, we'll see, and again, just runs wide. So
time for a tire change.
Limit. Yeah, Christian Glamseeder's on the wet tires though, so Rachel Jimenez possibly finding a friend with Christian Glamseeder, because if Christian Glamseeder is on the wet tires and Rachel Jimenez isn't the only driver on the wet tires, that says something. There's more than one person on wet tires, which is a good sign.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It is a good sign, but it depends on what the weather radar is bringing us. Of course, at the moment, there's no weather radar in the timing software community, so I can't actually tell you what the weather radar is doing. Obviously, from Brad's perspective, we might be able to have a look and see if it's still coming in. But at the same time, it looks like Christian Glamseeder, who's come out on them ring tyres, has also had a little bit of a problem going up through the S's, and that is his problem.
Yeah, looking at the weather radar, it actually looks like the rain is going to just continue to get heavier for the next little bit. So it looks like more and more rain coming in, as it looks like Mr. Scott Barton is now into the pits. So, you know, Robert Ridgway pit early and might have actually cost himself here, because the rain looks like it's supposed to continue to get more significant for the next little bit. So Robert Ridgway might actually cost himself a win with deciding to stay on dry tires like that.
Yeah.
We'll find out, because Scott Barton's on the wet tires. So it does look like the wets are going to be the decision.
Yeah, but I think it's how heavy it's going to get, isn't it? If they can get this done before it absolutely monsoons down, then I think they should be all right. But it's really just how heavy is this rain going to get in and around the car itself, and can they hold it on dry tyres? Well, we're going to find out, I suppose, as we're going into the final 8 here. So, yeah, unfortunately, it's not the thriller in Manila or super in Suzuka, is it? It's more conserving what you've got and making sure that you don't make any silly mistakes and finish your race off.
Yeah, that's the big thing, is you've got to keep the car on track. You have to finish first. So Robert Ridgway just has to stay consistent. Christian Glamseeder having another little off-track moment. So everybody but Adrian Colisi, Nick Marshall, Robert Ridgway is on wet tires. So you got 4 of the 7 cars on track on wet tires. But looking at lap times, which is what I'm kind of trying to gauge things off of, it's not... I don't think we're at that transition point yet. I do think it's going to come before the end of the race, but the question will be, how heavy does the rain get? But when you look at the spray off the back of Ridgway's car there like that, I mean, surely we're close, right? Because that's heavy spray coming off the back, running down into the final corners. And I'm showing Christian Glamseeder has had a moment along with Coliseed.
Yeah, Coliseed and Hinchcliffe. Apparently, there is Adrian Coliseed there. Coming up into the hairpin. You can see what's going to happen here. It's just going to unfortunately lose it and go round. And it's Hinchcliffe has been off the side of the track coming into turn 1. He's gone and spun it round there. Just missed the barrier. And Christian Glamseeder through Degner 2 by the looks of it this time. And unfortunately, he has gone round as well.
And now we jump through. We've got Adrian Coliseed in the pit lane here. We'll keep our eyes on that to see what he does. He's now officially stopped in his box in wet tires. So Robert Ridgway possibly in trouble if he's going to try to keep these dry tires working. But he's still pulling a gap. I mean, he's still pulling a gap to Scott Barton. I'm waiting to see when Scott Barton crosses another lap line so I can see some updated timings. But even then, like, looking at sector times, I mean, he just set a purple sector 6, which, again, I don't know why iRacing does 6 sectors. I'm not sure.
Not sure on that one.
But, yeah, he's still setting purple times on the track, so there's not a lot of, there's not a lot with Robert Ridgway that's telling me that he's in trouble at all on this track as he has the run down through towards the Casio Triangle yet again, down this long straight over the bridge. There is nothing that tells me he is feeling any pressure right now on the dry tires.
No, it doesn't even look like he's even attempting to make his move. We'll keep an eye on his lap time. Everybody else is out in the 2 minutes at the moment. Robert Ridgway currently is going over the line. Last lap would be, what did he do last time out? 1:55.96, I think it was. Everybody else out in the 2 minute mark. So he's still quicker, and yet he's still on dry tires.
Look at that. Scott Barton just crossed the line at a 1:59.28. So 4 seconds difference in 1 lap. And that's an actual flying lap from Scott Barton. So, I mean, I'm thoroughly confused, is all I can say. I'm thoroughly confused, but who am I?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's really going to be what Ridgway's going to do over the next couple of laps, right? I think that's going to be the thing. You can see at the moment, Scotty Barton 3.3 seconds down on lap 20 alone. Let's see what he does when he goes through this way. As I say, that Robert Ridgway goes in a little bit hot here. So we'll find out what his lap time is when he goes over the line after this one, and we'll try and put a rough time on who's gaining, losing, what the situation's going to be. But I think at the moment they might just continue to escape. That gap's going to continue to escape, and I think they're going to carry on. I don't think Robert has got any obligation to go in. It doesn't look like he's sliding. It doesn't look like he's slipping anywhere. He's not made any silly mistakes. He's braking confidently. So for him, He doesn't need to go anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, just stay consistent. That gap is still opening up. Look at that. The gap now 16.2, 16.3, 6. I mean, does he have grip hacks? Like, what are we looking at here with Robert Ridgway? Because obviously nobody else is confident on the dry tires. Well, except for Marshall, who's now up into P6 because Colaseed spun again. It looks like Christian Glamsuiter spun again.
Yeah, we've got a couple of sections here. Rachel Jimenez coming down into Degner 2. Unfortunately, Christian Glamsuiter coming, where is he at the moment? He's coming around the left-hander at the hairpin. That back end's going to go round. Is he going to keep it out the wall? That will be his main issue he has. And Adrian Colourseed, they're going into turn 1. Oh, no. Bounces off, may have just got away with it. And then we've got Alex Hinchcliffe, who has also made another mistake coming into Degner 2 this time. Runs in, can't get the turn rotated. I don't think it's as wet as what's being deemed. I really cannot. The gap is not even coming down. I don't see a massive improvement. I think it still looks fairly dry. I think as long as you stay on the darker side of the dry line, I don't really see it being a problem. We're on the nose here with Robert Ridgway, and at the moment there's not a speck of rain on it. I think for everybody that's gone in and got on rain tyres, I probably would be looking to come off them at the moment.
Yeah, and I think Christian Glamsuiter might be leading the charge on that because Christian Glamsuiter is now into the pits, in pit lane. I'll kind of keep my eye and see what happens there. Marshall is now, within half a second of Jimenez, and I think is going to just mosey right on around with not a lot of issue here. We'll see what happens. Right on this wing, right to the side, peek to the inside here. Pick your point. Be very meticulous with it here because we've seen some moments here. Rachel Jimenez to the inside, and there it is through. I think that pass is done through Degner 2 and around. So good on Mr. Nick Marshall getting his way up into P5. But now there's a minute 28 separating him from Alex Hinchcliffe, which I don't think is doable in just 5 laps. But I've been proven wrong before. But I'd like to say that I'd put my money that there is no way.
No. Basically, Marshall's now coming into Spoon, and Alex Hinchcliffe is going around Degner 2. So it's like a massive half a racetrack away from each other. As you can see, Scotty Barton is leaking time like a bad plumber fixing a tap, unfortunately for him. And it is just continuing to grow, and I don't see that this is a problem for Rob Ridgway. I think he's just comfortable in the wet on dry tyres, and I don't really feel he needs to worry about anything.
Yeah, he has no worries. Christian Glamsuiter went into the pits, came out of the pits, but stayed on wet tires, so I have to guess miscalculated fuel somewhere. Rachel Jimenez has now dropped down into P7 and is still losing time, as it looks like Rachel Jimenez has had another crash, another moment, It keeps telling me a crash, but that doesn't necessarily mean they crash. It could just be that they spun.
Yeah, it could be that she's just spun around off, unfortunately. And then goes back round again. Too much power.
No.
And then Rachel Jimenez, unfortunately, going round. Now in the pits is Rachel. So I think that's third time for Rachel Jimenez into the pits. They're caught up in turn 1 hairpin incident, and then went in for the mandatory pit stop, and now has gone back in again. So, and it is now back out on the racetrack. There she is.
Yeah. I wonder if Rachel just had to serve something for incident points, honestly.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. 22 seconds, a little bit light, but I am surprised that she stayed on the wet tyres. Adrian Colourseed looks like that's going off backwards. That is going off backwards onto the curb. Round he goes, backwards he goes.
And avoids the barrier this time, because I believe it was Adrian Colourseed who, a few laps ago, had just a gentle little tap of the barrier.
Yep. And there's Nick Marshall.
Oh, that's probably not what the floor of that car wanted.
To be honest, if it's, you can tell it's not as. Oh, what has Rachel been up to now? And I'm surprised you can tell it's not as heavy rain as it normally would be, because normally they wouldn't always get off the grass in that way. Rachel Jimenez looks like it's gone round, and unfortunately that is coming into the hairpin, and there goes the leader, just carrying on like nothing's even happened, just plodding on and saying, I don't know what you lot are talking about, as Christian Glamseater now goes round and finds himself in the gravel trap on the right hand side. So I think rain tyres, definitely a no-go. I wouldn't have put them on. Clearly, if I'm seeing Robert Ridgway doing lap after lap after lap, I definitely would not have put them on.
Yeah, the thing is, Robert Ridgway's lap times are starting to blend in. So it was a 1:58 last lap, and Scott Barton at a 1:59. So we're just now hitting a transition point. And, I have a note that something has happened to Scott Barton as I say his name, because why would I not, say a driver's name and then cause an incident? Because, yeah, I don't know.
It's a spin.
That's a gentle little off.
Yeah, he can still keep going though. That's a good thing. Just unfortunately lost a lot more time to Robert Ridgway. He's out in front by nearly 27 seconds, and has got Christian Glamseater still quite, actually, Christian's 1 minute 24 seconds behind Scotty Barton. So it's not like Barton's got, being pressurized here. Can literally just take it a little bit easy, and let's see how they get on.
Yeah, if you've got a minute and a half to the car behind, I'd Sunday cruise it. I would, stop at the shop, pick up a chicken, go set up a picnic somewhere. I feel like I've heard you say that once or twice, but that's what I would be doing, James. I wouldn't be trying to hot lap. I wouldn't be trying to do anything. You've got 30 seconds to Ridgway ahead, who looks like he's driving in a completely different stratosphere to the rest of the field. You've got a minute and a half behind. There's no sense in putting pressure. And Christian Glamseater, stay off of the paint. Stay off of the fake turf. That was a scary moment there for Christian Glamseater.
Could have been. All he had to do was slam that throttle, and he would have been doing more spins than a ballerina in Swan Lake, to be honest. I am surprised these guys have really persevered with this, but we've only got 2 laps to go here as Christian goes in deep again. Can't get the car stopped on the rain.
Yeah, it's like Christian's brakes just aren't working. I don't really know what it is, but it's like Christian Glamseater's brakes just are not working, which is kind of surprising for me to see. Really thought that, you're going through 2:02 for Christian Glamseater and a 2-minute flat for Robert Ridgway. So we have hit that transition point between dry and wet tires, but somehow Robert Ridgway is just going to persevere the rest of the way through. And Christian Glamseater with another off track. Man, that car is not happy in this rain at all.
Hinchcliffe's got Marshall, and now he's got 2.6, 2.5, 2.4 maybe, going up for ES's over Christian Glamseater. So if Christian makes one more mistake, game over. Yeah, pretty much. I think he'll end up losing the 3rd place.
Honestly, I do think Christian Glamseater is going to lose this P3, just looking at how that car is handling, because look at that. He's back off the track again as they run down through Dunlop 2. And, doggone, he's not having a good time. Also, I said Dunlop 2, it's Degner 2. Let me correct myself really quick before every Suzuka fan comes after me, because people get very, very, very passionate about Suzuka.
It's a good track. That's the thing. It's got multiple layouts. You've got the east, the west. There's a couple of others as well. The Grand Prix layout. So you can really utilize it depending on what cars you've got or what you're wanting to put round here. And it is quite a multi-car racetrack with different variations of what you can do. Glamseater still running here. What about Rachel Jimenez, unfortunately? Going into Degner 2, just completely does not get it stopped or turned. And I am literally surprised that these guys have stayed on these tyres. I think considering Jimenez pitted all the way down. I've got a last pitted at lap 7. I'm very surprised that she stayed on the tyres.
Yeah, I think this is a case of all of the drivers, iRacing has done such a good job of modeling this rain and modeling everything as the white flag is out that I think some of the drivers just got sort of, they saw the radar and everyone's used to that model of, oh, it says it's going to rain, I need rain tires. You don't, though. We see this in real life. A lot of times it starts raining and it's better to just stay out on the dry tires because the dry tires will be able to withstand a certain amount of water and continue going. And, for Ridgway, he's just now ran a slower lap than Scott Barton in P2. He ran a 2:02 last lap and Scott Barton ran a 2:01 last lap. So it's just now the point where Robert Ridgway is truly having to tiptoe. And if you think about that, we started having rain before lap 10. So I think some of that is just a mentality change that you have to do in iRacing of like just because there's water doesn't mean I have to go on wet tires.
Yeah, I think you just weigh it up. I think, to be fair, it could be one of the things that I do wonder whether or not they've considered is the drainage at each racetrack. Certain racetracks have got better drainage than others. Others is just the point of, well, flat out useless, non-existent. But tracks that are purpose-built like Suzuka, Silverstone have got half-decent drainage, and I'm wondering if the drainage of it is something that they've considered when they're building it, or do they just see it as, well, here's the track, we're going to drop rain on it, and jobs are good.
I don't know either, and this is Alex Hinchcliffe having another moment. This is turn 1, a little bit too much on the beans. Don't think he actually tapped the curb. I think it was just a little bit too much beans and brought it around, but
Robert Ridgway coming over the line.
Yeah, Robert Ridgway. I mean, what do you say, really? It's been dominance. Once Robert Ridgway was in the lead, there was no stopping because here we go. He's around. Checkered flag's out. Robert Ridgway is going to be the winner of this penultimate round of iFormula. And a very, very good win back in the back. That is actually Rachel Jimenez, who just came over the line. Scott Barton, 18 seconds back, and the gap continuing to open up slowly. Somebody was spinning there, as we saw. I have some triggers for Christian Glamseeder and Nick Marshall. Christian Glamseeder here. And I'm guessing this is going to be a turn 1 spin yet again. Goes through. Is it the curb? No, it's just running too wide through turn 1. And then that is Nick Marshall, who I think we got just a light half a second glimpse of going around here. That one is the paint on the inside, though.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Unfortunately, just waiting for the rest of the field to come over the line. And then we will be able to bring you up the final results. As Alex Hinchcliffe there goes past Nick Marshall. Third place is Christian Glamseeder, so it's 1, 2, 3. So Ridgway, Barton, and Glamseeder. We've got 3 different nationalities in the top 3 at the moment. And then we've got Alex Hinchcliffe, Adrian Cullerseed from America and Norway. Norway, I'm pretty sure it is. Or Denmark, it could be actually, sorry. Denmark, respectively. And then, of course, Marshall, Rachel Jimenez. Before we get to the Australian, there's Ian Lance. And then we finish off with the American, which is Mackenzie Roon.
Man, it is amazing to me just how big some of the gaps formed. I thought this was going to be based on practice and qualifying times. I thought this was going to be a lot closer of a run for these drivers. I thought we were going to have, a pretty tight competitive little pack all the way through, but then things really, really opened up. You see Christian Glamseeder doing some swerves. He's very, very happy for this race to be over. And I mean, you got to feel for Ian Lance and Mackenzie Roon because they had not a great time. Cullerseed's over the line, Hinchcliffe is over the line, and now we just wait on Marshall, who's coming through Casio Triangle now. And then that will give us the final results. An interesting next to final round. Started with 9, finished with 7, and of course next week it is going to be Zandvoort, which is going to be fun, I think, James.
Yeah, Zandvoort's a different story. Hopefully we'll get some more drivers onto the grid. But here are the final results for you.
Yeah, we've got Robert Ridgway in P1 overall with a very dominant win, you have to say. Scott Barton in second place, Christian Glamseeder in P3, Alec Hinchcliffe in fourth, Adrian Colaseed in fifth, Nick Marshall in sixth, Rachel Jimenez, the last of our drivers to finish on track at P7. And you got Ian Lance and Mackenzie Roon, the DNFs in P8 and P9. James, been a pretty good little Suzuka. The rain, I think, caught some people off guard, and they weren't expecting it. But let's go ahead and grab our race winner here, Robert Ridgway. Let's get a quick second with him, see how he feels. Mr. Robert Ridgway, good afternoon, my friend. Congratulations on your win. Tell me why you stuck with dry tires. Let's start with that, because that was a interesting decision on my side when the whole field went to wets and you stayed on dries.
Well, I underfueled, so I was like, when I pitted, it was still dries were working, and I was like, when you throw the wets on, it's the new setup, and I was just like, let's just go dry and keep it going. We're in the lead, and we'll have 10 seconds on Scott and see what happens. And then those last few laps were pretty rough, but I had such a big gap. I was like, just don't bend it, and we'll win it. You know what I mean?
Don't bend it, and we'll win it. I like it. When did the track really transition over to a point that it should have been wet? Because I feel like some of the drivers might have just gotten caught off guard with the track being, drier than it appeared. There were some moments where I saw some spray, but then it wasn't. When was it really the point when you felt like you needed to go, a moment of, I should have been on wets? Was it like 5 to go, 10 to go?
I would say probably somewhere between 5 to 10 to go. I have 3 things that helped me. It was 2 experiences. One was Motegi. It started raining at the end of the race, and a lot of the fast guys stayed dry. And then the second one was I did a dry to wet run just to see kind of when to pit. And then the third one is I have Race Labs overlays that says precipitation percentage, like how hard it's raining and how dry the track is. So it was mostly dry. It went from dry to mostly dry, and then it got very lightly wet. It was the label for it around probably 5 to 10 laps to go, maybe 10 laps to go. And then I was like, oh no. And then those last couple laps were just tough. It was beyond being able to drive it.
Look at you with the Race Lab overlays. That's a good trick. I have a feeling that some people are going to be kicking themselves for not using it. But Robert, it's your second win of the season. We've got just 1 round to go. Are you going to be here next week, and what are you looking at next week?
Oh, yeah, I'll be here next week, and I got to try to get a 3-peat, right? 3 in a row. Let's go. Hey,
3 for 3 to end the race. Unfortunately, because it's going to be the end of the season, you can't go for the Wendy's 4 for 4, but, we'll be rooting for you from the booth. We'll see what happens. And of course, as is tradition here on the JP Broadcasting Network, anyone you want to thank, anyone you want to shout out, 30 seconds, the floor is yours.
Yeah, man, shout out the league. Shout out, obviously, Ridgway Racing Setups. That's what got us to the win. And, shout out to the fam. And a big shout out to you guys. Y'all do a great job every time. Appreciate it.
Awesome. And thank you, sir. We'll see you next week, okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, indeed. And then let's go ahead and grab Scott Barton. Mr. Barton, good evening, sir, or morning, or whatever time of day it is for you. From
3:30. 3:30 in the morning.
The dedication, I have to say. Tell me how your race felt.
Oh, it'd be a lot better if I had practice. I haven't had much time to do some practice. I've been up and down with my pain. I've had a spinal fusion done 5 years ago, so I deal with a lot of pain, and Australia Post decided to lose my pain medication in the mail, so 2 weeks to get that back under control. And yeah, I was out of the rig for a bit. I still did a little bit, but I couldn't do anywhere near as what I wanted to. So, but good little race.
Did the rain catch you off guard? I asked Robert Ridgway the same question about why he didn't transition over to wets. You did go onto wet tires. What was it that kind of clued you into going to wets? Because it doesn't seem like really the lap time switched over until the last 5 laps or so.
Yeah, well, I was hoping with the way the weather was coming across, it was going to get a little bit heavier. more towards the end, but I didn't expect it to be like 2 or 3 laps to the end. But it's racing. You got to throw these things out there. Robbie did well, so good on him.
Yeah, were you running his setups? I gotta ask. I saw he posted the setups before.
I throw a bit of an idea at it. I like my car more pointier, so yeah. If he throws a setup and I don't have time to make mine, I sort of grab it and just tweak it. So yeah.
Okay, I got you. And then I'm gonna ask you about next week real quick. Suzuka looking forward, or not Suzuka? We were at Suzuka this week. It's Zandvoort looking forward.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to that. That's one of my favourite tracks. I'm Dutch nationality. Born here in Australia, but my parents were born in Holland, so it's a bit of a home ground again. But we'll see how we go.
Oh, look at you! So hometown hero. I'll remember that for next week. As is tradition here, Scott. Anyone you want to thank? Anyone you want to shout out? 30 seconds. The floor is yours.
All the boys that put this thing together. You guys in the broadcast team. All the boys at Valve, Everything Simulated, RSW Graphics. Yeah, that's about it.
Awesome, Scott. Well, congrats there on P2, and we will see you next week, okay?
Thanks, guys.
All right, and let's grab Christian Glamseater real quick. Christian, good afternoon, sir. How was your race?
Good afternoon. My race was a bit everywhere today.
Everywhere.
Happy with the result, but I could not keep it on track today. Like, I was off the track almost every lap.
We saw a few moments that looked kind of tricky from you. Was it car setup? Was it rain? What was it?
Probably a bit of everything. Lap 1 I got damaged after getting hit. So I was down on the straight, so I was pushing really hard to try and keep up with the 2 guys in front. And that just caused more mistakes. Then I underfueled, so I decided to go on the wets, but it was probably a bit too early, so I was struggling with lack of grip on the wets, really.
Yeah, and then I asked everyone the same question about rain transitioning, because it seems like you were on the wet tires, but they really didn't show any pace till the final few laps. And even then, looking at your lap times, it wasn't as comparable. Do the wet tires just not work as well on these cars as it feels like they should, or was it, just the track kind of caught you off guard?
Yeah, no, I was expecting more rain, to be honest. So I think the wets just didn't work with this light rain we had. We need more rain for the wets to work better than the dries. And looking at Robert's lap times, he had the pace on dries. Like, even if it was pretty sketchy. Right before I pitted, I was starting to slide, so I decided I'm going to pit. And even then it was sketchy, but Robert held out, so he showed that the dries were still better.
Yeah, it was interesting from the booth to watch the lap times, I will say. But as is tradition, Christian, anyone you want to thank, anyone you want to shout out, 30 seconds, the floor is yours.
I would like to thank my team No Limit Sim Racing and my teammate Connor for helping me out today. And then I would also like to thank you guys for keeping up this awesome broadcast.
Yeah, and thank you, Christian. Appreciate your time. Congrats on the P3, and we'll see you next week at Circuit Zandvoort.
Yeah, thank you. See you.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be where we round off the broadcast here for today here with the Super Formula Lights. On behalf of Mr. James Parfitt, my name has been Brad, and we've taken you from start to finish. Be sure to join us next time on the JP Broadcasting Network, where we can take you from start to finish yet again.